Hot button.
The aquarium today. Hippos are scary, but also cute.
Wait, they had hippos at the aquarium?
Yeah, they have two of them.
Hippos are supposed to be very aggressive and scary.
These seems nice enough.
They kill more
I
people
hope they
than-
were born in captivity. Because I have like a weird thing against zoos.
No,
like
yeah.
if you're
I get a lot
taking
of shit
care of
for that 'cause
animals
they
because
make
they're
me
like,
sad.
you know, they're special needs animals.
Yeah.
Or if they were born there and they've never known what the wild is
Sure,
like,
yeah.
then it's okay. But like,
Hippo collectors.
yeah.
Just like getting an animal and then putting it in the zoo and being like, "Yeah, everybody, look at it."
That's
Yeah.
fucked up. Yeah. I don't like monkeys at the zoo because they're too. We just missed being monkeys.
Well,
like we just missed it,
What's
dude.
the equivalent of a human zoo?
Jail.
Fucking idiot.
Hello, everybody. This is Hot Button, and today we are all going to learn the full history of the industry's most successful sci-fi first-person shooter ever, and how it practically single-handedly helped put tech company Microsoft on the video game map, right up there to fight with the other big boys. What Mario is to Nintendo, the imagery and power of this series alone still stands as one of the primary pillars of their entire business roadmap. To say the effect these titles had in the gaming world was significant even into today would almost be a ludicrous understatement. Everything from its take on controls to artificial intelligence to lore to its artwork and music and sound to, of course, its unforgettable cooperative and competitive multiplayer, it could be easy to forget just how powerful and important this franchise was right from the very beginning. I am Randall Beechers, and I'm here as always with Chris Anantuano.
Can I guess what game we're talking about?
You know.
No, it's Brink, right?
It is Brink, a series to this day still trucking hard. And Austin Blakes-
Brinksley. He
Brinks-
changed his name when Brink
Brinksley.
came out because it's so good.
Yeah, I changed it again when Lawbreakers came out. I'm real up on these trends.
Austin, why don't you tell us the story of Bungie's Halo Combat Evolved?
All right, a little bit of a teaser for you, by the way. There's a lot of glowing respect for Halo in that, and I appreciate it, but the reason I wanted to do this story is because this is the equivalent of somebody like winning the Olympics for like the marathon and their
Yeah.
legs just start falling off at the end, but they still limp their way across the finish line.
I mean, as a diehard GoldenEye defender, I understand, like, reading through the story was really fascinating because, number one, it was like the reflection of going back and realizing really just how important Halo 1 was, but
Yes.
also the realization of, like, how the fuck did this come to be as successful as it was? Like,
Yeah.
it was real down to the wire in ways that
All
I
right.
did not know.
So to start, we're going to start with Bungie's history, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to go too far into that. We're just going to cover the bases, and then once we get up to Halo, then we'll get real in depth. So the story of Bungie starts in 1990. A guy named Alex Seropian was getting his degree in mathematics from the University of Chicago because they didn't have a degree in computer science at the time because it was the beginning of the
They
90s.
didn't know what computers were
Yeah.
back then.
No, computers were still as big as warehouses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're thinking like the
They're all
60s.
main-
No, in the
Frames.
60s, computers were as big as buildings that were contained warehouses.
Oh, okay. I thought
I'm still being a little slow to start.
but he was very interested in video games, and his first game was a Pong clone called Nop, spelled G-N-O-P, which
Clever.
Off to a great start.
those sharp listeners out there will realize is Pong spelled backwards.
Also, trying to find any footage of that game was, like, impossible, since apparently there's, like, a family board game out there with the same name.
Yes.
So I tried to go on YouTube just to, like, see what this looked like, and couldn't find it.
Nope.
So,
It's funny because this was actually made before the founding of Bungie.
Okay.
And it was, he released it for free. Apparently it had some weird cult following of people who thought it was better than Pong. And
full words.
if you go back, like, if you go into Bungie's
Better
official...
than 3D Flash Pong.
Is there like 6 dudes in the 70s? Like, fuck, this game's better than Pong. This is crazy.
Hipsters existed for a very long time.
This is the first game published with the Bungie name.
It's crazy that they had that name for so long.
It booted
Yeah.
up with Bungie, but Bungie was not a company yet. But if you go look at Bungie's official history of themselves as a company, they consider Nop to be their first Bungie game, even though
Gnop.
He
They've
was
been making shitty content forever.
watch it. They had a couple
See how far
golden
you can
years.
push
We'll
it.
get to it. But yeah, this was when he was in school still. Apparently, his father was real big on him getting a job straight out of college.
Dads, am I right?
Yeah,
Computers are a passing phase.
yeah. And
We didn't have computers and we beat the Nazis. Get a job.
Go dig in the coal mines.
yeah. Apparently, the quote-unquote success of Nop led him to believe that, hey, maybe I should just start a video game company. I can make video games, right? Well,
Why not?
he can, as we will come to know. But yeah, he made a game called Operation Desert Storm, which was a top-down tank game where you fought... maybe a little culturally insensitive now, but you fight a bunch of brown people, and then at the end you fight a giant Saddam Hussein head. This was actually during Desert Storm, by the way. This
Yeah,
wasn't
I was
like
gonna
So
say
this might have been,
91?
this might have been a bit like
This
a
wasn't
nice
like
political
little on the
satire
mi-
game, you know?
because I clicked on that name like 5 times because I keep thinking of Conflict Desert
Well,
Storm.
that's what I was about to say. That I was like, it was hard to find gameplay of this as well because I kept finding the game Conflict Desert Storm, the game, and then actual Desert Storm footage. So I did find it though.
Yeah, that game was released in May of 1991.
It apparently went on to sell like 2,500 copies. or
2,500
something. Yeah.
copies, yeah. And he also officially incorporated the name Bungie. So they were now officially a company, and by they, I mean him. But yeah, he was still in school when he founded Bungie. And in this school, he met a programmer named Jason Jones. And this guy
Tough name.
was a Mac programmer. He was raised on Mac. Didn't like PCs, I guess.
Hey, I just made a game called Korean War. You want to check it out?
It's a little nerdier than that. This guy's a real nerd. I love him. I love him because he created Halo.
I
But
was just thinking it'd be funny if two guys met and they both made top-down war games.
no, their company is so weird, and it's like we'll get to it, but it's this weird thing where like, and you can see it ripple throughout their games. It happens in Halo, and it even happened in Destiny. This guy was like hyper nerd, and the other guy was like into military shooters. So they keep going back and forth between the two.
Well, you know, that actually explains the Halo aesthetic
Yes.
really well.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost like this weird, accidental, perfect marriage.
Yeah, it's sort of like the military
But,
and fantasy sci-fi aspects
But yeah,
slammed together.
when he met him, he was a Mac fan, and he was like, "I'm making a game." So Bungie officially published its second incorporated, third real game in 1992 called Minotaur: The Labyrinths of Crete, which is not a military shooter. It was a multiplayer
That's ambitious.
dungeon crawler. It's like one of those maze games from the early 90s.
Yeah, first person.
But it was multiplayer.
no,
And,
no combat though, right? Maybe there
no,
was.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I found footage of this too.
but
Performed about
yeah.
the same as Desert Storm.
Yeah, it sold about 2,500 copies, but that was enough, I guess, for a couple college students to get the money they needed to keep doing this.
Yeah.
From that point on, Jones officially joined Bungie, took over as the main programmer, and Seropian was the designer and publicist for the company. He did all the PR and all that stuff, and Jason Jones did all the programming. And right after this, in 1992, after they released the Minotaur, Jones played a little game called Wolfenstein 3D,
Whoa.
which was hard for him because, like I said, he was like a diehard Mac fan.
Yeah.
And Wolfenstein
It was not
at the
on-
time was not on
There's
Mac.
turtleneck idiots over there. Didn't have nothing like this.
Yeah. So Jason Jones, inspired by playing Wolfenstein 3D, decided that he would try his hand at making a similar 3D game engine that would run on Mac.
Was he gonna try and port it?
Yeah, so his original idea was to try to, because I believe Minotaur was like a top-down game.
Oh.
He was going to try to port Minotaur to work in 3D.
This is how it became first person.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the footage I saw.
Oh, no, I think it was first person, but it wasn't like Wolfenstein first person.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't that, like, where it's like if you spin around the enemies, they spin with you, even
Yeah,
though they're
yeah,
2D
yeah, the
planes,
sprites.
like the Doom Wolfenstein engine.
Yeah.
So he tried to port a Minotaur to this engine, but he found that it didn't actually really work too well in this 3D engine. So instead, they got to work on writing a story for another game, which would eventually be called Pathways into Darkness, which was a first-person shooter where you played a special forces soldier in some fake 90s war. It sounded like a take on like a Vietnam thing, and it looked like it too, but it was like it wasn't Vietnam. It was like a fake war.
It did look a little bit like an id game.
Yeah.
Like gun in the middle of the screen and all that. Yeah. And that sold well, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah.
That game came out in August of 1993, and the game was a success. Sold really well and even went on to win some awards. Because basically all it took to win awards was like, hey, we made Wolfenstein, but it
like
runs on Mac, and they're like, Mac Game of the Year.
Yeah.
It was also hard as shit, apparently. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did well, and the company saw how well it did, and they decided, hey, we got to do that again. So then they started developing Pathways into Darkness 2. But here is where the whole marriage of military sci-fi thing is going to come into play, because
this game gets referenced
Yes.
a lot more in the...
and this game had a huge impact on Halo. The sequel to Pathways into Darkness eventually morphed into a new game. They started writing a sci-fi script about rogue AI. Sound familiar?
I was like, wait, there's no rogue AI in Brink.
I was System Shock.
I mean, System
This
Shock, yeah,
predates
but
that.
also
Yeah.
Halo and Destiny.
Yeah.
But
Portal.
the game would eventually go on to be called Marathon,
Yeah, Marathon.
which was a first-person shooter released on Mac in December 14th, 1994.
A lot of
Now-
references in later Bungie games to this.
Yes.
Wait, did the first Marathon come out on Windows, or was it the second one? Because I played one of them.
They came out on 360.
Did they really?
Yeah, did you play them on 360?
No, I played them on... All right, so after Halo 1 kind of hit it big, I downloaded them on PC. Like,
I think they
you
got
know.
ported eventually.
Okay,
maybe then.
I didn't know that. And it was funny
yeah,
because...
I played Marathon on Xbox.
that thing was like really crazy in terms of like some of the things it was doing. It had a built-in friends list in that game.
What?
It did. Yeah, and also you could look up and down with the mouse. Like this was years before
Yes.
Quake. No one gave them their first credit on that.
I couldn't find definitive proof, but a lot of people did say that this is credited as the first-person shooter that let you look up and down.
Yeah, this is even before
Yeah,
Star
I've
Wars
heard-
Dark
I've heard that.
Forces,
Yeah.
I think. And apparently, like, this one also had, like, you mentioned the writing and stuff in it. There was, like, all this story. Like, nowadays it's like a trope where, like, a lot of games, they're delivered exposition through, like, finding recordings and reading stuff. But, like, this was huge
Yeah.
at the time. They wrote
We
a
gotta
lot
think
of
of
shit.
because there's no other way to deliver this sort of
Yeah,
thing.
but in
you know
like
what I mean?
'94, there was like a real narrative with like notes on all these different characters.
Yeah,
and
there was like
stuff.
terminals you could go up to and read
Yeah.
like logs and
Yeah, it's really
It's
wild.
awesome.
But yeah, this game they
had no
thought
idea they were on
thought
Xbox.
if we can keep making Pathways into Darkness games that are that successful, then we'll be good. This game blew the fuck up.
Yeah.
Marathon was a huge success. This is when Bungie moved into an office, decided to expand the company, get some outside help. This is when they hired other people. The one that people are probably most familiar with is composer Martin O'Donnell.
I didn't know he was that early on.
Yeah. Because I found a quote from him saying that their first office was basically like a crack den. Or it was like an old frat house.
Oh man.
Or like a frat apartment that just smelled like beer or something like that.
Wait, where were they located again?
Chicago.
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 Yeah.
Known
Yeah.
for its
Sausage.
and fires.
And
Improv comedy. Cold weather.
there's also a
Subways.
flashback into the day when Bungie knew how to make games that came out in less than 5 years.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Because,
these are all like months apart.
Yeah, we had 1990, 1991, 92,
Yeah.
93, 94, and then a sequel to Marathon called Marathon 2 Durandal.
This might have been the one because this might have been their first release on Windows.
Maybe.
If I played it back in the early 2000s.
I don't know that, but I do know that their next game, which I'll get to, did come out on both Mac and PC. But
Mac and like Macintosh.
Yeah.
Apple.
No,
I get it
like the
now.
Big Mac.
Apple.
What?
Oh, never mind.
yeah, it's named after the type of apple.
So what's Microsoft based after? Is there a fruit or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Microsoft.
You've never had a Microsoft?
Just cut this out.
You said Chicago is known for its improv comedy?
Yeah.
And
I'm
are you
not
from there?
Chicago.
Damn it.
Also, hot dogs.
Is that a Chicago thing?
Yeah, Chicago-style hot dogs.
Oh, what's
You
a
never-
Sausage.
You said wait, what's a Chicago style hot dog?
A Chicago-style hot dog is different from a New York-style hot dog. 'cause
But
it has
the
a
wind
special-
blew it off your bun.
Yeah, it's like a special kind of skin that makes it like snap when you bite it. And they also put like an entire pickle and an entire tomato and an entire pepper on it. You never seen a Chicago style?
I've never been to Chicago.
There's relish on it and
That's
mustard.
it.
like
Google hot dogs.
Yeah.
And also, if you put ketchup on a Chicago style hot dog, apparently they'll like lynch you in the streets.
Damn, that's some
But that's just because they're really racist still.
That's every
That's not
city.
because of the hot dog.
If any of our Chicago listeners want to chime in, you can hit us up at Hot Button Cast on social media and tell us the times that you killed someone for putting ketchup on a hot
the
dog.
windy hot dog.
Yeah.
That's what you call it.
But yeah, after Marathon and its sequel came out, this is when Bungie expanded even more and they started to develop multiple projects. And one of those multiple projects is our topic for the day. But first, they started developing a strategy game called Myth: The Fallen Lords, which was top-down RTS game, which will become important in a little bit.
I'm pretty sure my brother had this game when I was a kid.
Yeah?
He was a big Age of Empires and like Civ guy, so it's not that unbelievable, but like the footage was so familiar to me.
This was released on November 25th, 1997. Second, I don't know if you guys remember this game, Bungie opened a second studio, a satellite studio in San Jose, California, to develop a game in conjunction with Rockstar.
Yeah, this game was weird.
This game was a third-person anime-inspired action game called Oni.
Yeah.
You ever play that?
No,
Yeah.
but I'm familiar with the game.
Yeah, like I had a friend of mine who rented it back in the day because he was really big into like anime games, and it was like was it based off a show or just have like an anime look to it?
I think it just had an anime.
I just thought it was some Ninja Gaiden clone. Like I never.
It had
really,
more. It had more shooting, but there was also a lot of hand-to-hand stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm trying to think of another game to compare it to. Piano 3. I have no idea. It was weird, but I do remember picking up that box years later at a GameStop and being like, "What the fuck?" Like it says Bungie and Rockstar. It was like when Capcom helped develop that first Red Dead.
Yeah.
So like, there's a Capcom logo and a Rockstar logo in the same box, and you're like, "Man."
Yeah, and it was
bizarre
weird because I think
partnership.
I don't have this in here, but I think this is when Take-Two acquired this isn't when, but Take-Two would go on to acquire like part of Bungie, and they were actually a pretty big part in Microsoft's purchasing of Bungie.
I don't remember how Oni did. It seemed fine.
Yeah,
I know that
was
Myth
all right.
game apparently was huge.
Oh yeah, that Myth game was huge, spawned a sequel. But the third project back in the Chicago offices was being worked on in secret in like a back room by 3 people. One of those 3 people being original co-founder Jason Jones.
Yeah, of course he has something to do with this.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he was 15 when he thought of this idea. That's an idea that you have forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the game started out with the code name Armor.
Okay.
But Bungie had a problem with code names. They would code name their projects to keep them hidden in secret, and then they would get so busy that they would forget to actually name the games. It turns out that both Marathon and Myth started out as their code names.
Sorry, that was Ganappa.
No, that was just him being uncreative.
Okay. The only problem with Myth is that it came out around the same time as Myst.
I honestly thought you said Myst first. And for a split second, I was like, wait, Bungie made Myst? What? And then I was like, oh, wait, no, you said Myth.
But yeah, they didn't want this game coming out with the name Armor. So then they
It's
decided.
dumb.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Armor is a dumb name.
They decided.
Well, not as dumb as this.
Yeah. They decided to change the code name to something that would absolutely have to be changed before release. So the game's name was changed from
Cactus.
Codename Armor to Codename Monkey Nuts.
Nah, ship it.
Spelled
Yeah.
MUNKEY space NUTZ.
And I don't know. I visualize Super Monkey Ball for some reason every time I read
That's
it.
perverted, I think.
That's a great game.
So unfunny.
That's a great
Not you.
game.
Then Monkey Nuts. That's
like
dark.
I
Yeah,
never claimed
Jesus
it.
Christ.
Well,
Yeah. No, Monkey Nuts. It's just got like, just fucking Monkey Nuts.
Apparently, this game held another problem for them, which was that they absolutely
No
did.
cursing indoors.
Well, they absolutely did need to change the name before the game came out, but the problem was that people kept asking them what they were saying or what they were working on, and they kept having to say codename Monkey Nuts. And Jason Jones was quoted as saying, "I didn't want to say the words Monkey Nuts to my mother." So then the codename was changed again from Monkey Nuts to Blam.
Gorilla Balls.
Blam.
Blam.
Yeah.
With an exclamation
With
point.
an exclamation point. That's also stupid.
Yeah.
Better than Monkey Nuts, I guess. Just imagine the box art for Halo where it's just Master Chief and it says Monkey Nuts on it, and then they're like, no, and there's another one that just says Blam.
Codename Blam started out development on PC instead of Mac, and
Betrayal.
And the game started out as a test of a new RTS engine, possibly for a Myth sequel or just another RTS game, since Myth, like Randy said, did really well.
Yeah.
But
Sense?
Plus, real-time strategies were all the rage.
Yeah,
in
that
the
era
90s.
for sure.
but the thing was, they didn't
Now
want.
they're dead.
They didn't want to. I didn't say this, but Myth
Shut
was
your mouth.
Myth. If the name didn't imply it enough, was like a barbarians and minotaurs,
Yes,
yeah.
top-down RTS. This one was they were adding in military vehicles. They were going to do Marines and tanks and
Command and Conquer style.
helicopters. Yeah, like a Command and Conquer. But they had a weird problem with the physics of the vehicles.
Right, problem.
Yeah, problem, which would later go on to make them billions of dollars.
I love this.
The physics for the vehicles proved to be really bouncy.
Yeah.
They had like weird suspensions and they would bounce all around the terrain. And one programmer in his off time was very curious about how these vehicles would feel to actually drive. So he randomly went in and hooked up third-person controls to one of the Marines, got in one of the then Jeeps,
Yeah.
which would later be called Warthogs. Woo! And he drove the vehicle around the map.
Top
And,
down, though, like third person.
No, it was
style.
third person.
Yeah, with third person.
Third person, yeah. And this proved to be so much fun that he pulled in a bunch of other people and was like, yo, check this out. And then they started having races and stuff.
That's so awesome.
And then,
Fuck yeah, man.
and then that's when the decision was made to turn this game and this engine from an RTS engine into a third-person action game
I was
engine.
losing it when I read that because
Yeah.
like when I was a kid, that's literally my favorite thing to do in Halo. Like
Yeah.
it's so much fun, and
Yeah.
the Warthogs are indestructible in one.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
like you just send them flying through the air constantly.
See, that's so strange to me. They were bouncy. Wait, so what? Just find the guy who wrote the code and just, like, you know what I mean? Like, what
Yeah.
what makes them bouncy? There had to be some.
It's just
I
like-
guess
like
if
they
you're
had
building
physics
it
on
from
them,
the
I
ground
guess.
up,
I mean, if the terrain was like, you know,
It was just, it was a really hilly terrain, and the physics just made it so that the cars would like go over cliffs and like jump and like
Yeah.
Warthogs did, and they were just like, that looks kind of fun to drive, but I can't drive them
Yeah,
because it's an
it's an
RTS. So I
RTS.
just click and watch the guy bounce
wanna
around. It's like,
play-
what if I bounced around?
I want
And,
to play Bungie's racing game.
I mean, there was a race mode in
There was
Halo 1.
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty fucked up. They got a lot of flack for that, you know, for the race mode.
Oh, God.
They took that out of a later patch.
But yeah, this is when the idea for Halo was born. Or like,
Wow,
well,
these cars sure are bouncy. What if there was a ring where all the life was on it because they were hiding from a giant intergalactic virus?
That's exactly how fast it happened. Yeah.
I'm about to get to that. So, no, you're good. They started adding new vehicles into the game to test out that they had planned for the RTS mode,
Yeah.
but they wanted to see how the bouncy physics would affect them. So things like helicopters, boats. They added in new
happened to
weapons
those?
like a machete. They had machetes now, which would later go on to, I think the code for that would
Be the
later go
sword.
on to be the sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is also where the idea of the game taking place in the future on a sci-fi ring world was added.
Okay.
This is when the ring going up in the background in the skybox was added.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So
Yeah.
cool.
Even in later stuff in Destiny, they're so fucking good at skyboxes.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's the background.
Whoever their early concept artist must have been, because I looked at some of the old like Halo concept art.
absolutely.
I wonder,
Yeah.
I'm curious. Do you know if it's the same people, Austin, like the concept artists or not?
No, for
I have to look
Destiny.
that up.
Halo,
Yeah,
I don't
no,
think
for
Halo.
Destiny and
I don't
yeah.
think Halo
No.
gets enough credit for its.
But
like,
there's no doubt in my
design
mind
of-
that the Destiny concept artists were inspired by Halo already.
Oh,
so,
for
totally.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you got to thank those fucking.
But
dudes
it's funny
like this.
that like even if you don't like Halo, the weapons and vehicles are and designs of the characters are so fucking iconic that like they transcend games.
Yeah.
like
Oh,
even the
yeah.
sound effects and
If you
everything
talk,
are so
if
like
you talk about
instantly
Halo's
recognizable.
list of weapons, there's some weird things in there like the gravity hammer
yeah,
and
the
stuff.
needler and
Yeah, the
Oh,
needler.
needler.
It's like, oh, well, what weapons did Halo 2 have? It's like, well, we have a pistol, we have an assault rifle, we have a battle rifle,
yeah.
we have an SMG,
Yeah, you're
we have a
right.
rocket launcher, we have a shotgun. Like, they're such generic names.
Yeah.
But like, you show anybody a picture
Oh,
of,
yeah.
of the shotgun from Halo, and they're
It's
like,
the
that's the fucking shotgun
I know,
from
I'm
Halo.
sure I
the
can
shotgun and the sniper and the assault
Yeah.
rifle are like the video
Yes.
game shotgun.
Yeah, that's
sniper rifle. and
I'm sure I
assault
could show my
rifle.
mom a picture of Master Chief with no title and be like, "Do you know what game's this from?"
Yeah,
and she'd be
exactly,
like, "Wait,
yeah.
I know that game.
It's Master Chef.
Hang blow. Blank, what is it?
It's called Blam, Mom.
It's called Monkey Nuts.
Yeah, I'd tell my mother. She wouldn't care.
Jason Jones, being the nerd he is, saw this idea for a ring world, or added the idea for a ring world, and then the lore just started to blossom out of his brain. It's like,
Gets high once.
what if the humans crash landed on this ring world and they were being chased by this covenant of alien species? And you're just like, what? Yeah.
What if he was like an idea man, but he wasn't good at dialogue? So it was like, yeah, there's this alien organization. Like everything he had was just like a horrible version, like horrible non-flashy versions. They wrote a little thing. Yeah, it's a giant circle world. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm curious if he was
Punch it
Catholic.
up a bit.
Because playing Halo 1, 2, and 3, there's some
A lot of religious.
there's a lot of religious
Oh,
shit
yeah.
There
in the
is,
Covenant.
That's why they're bad.
Yeah, so around this time.
In the enemy.
Oh, I thought you.
The Ark.
Don't say Halo's bad, or I'm gonna.
No, I meant that they're bad guys.
Yeah, I know what you meant. I'm just.
He's real
anything-
on edge.
I'm
Yeah.
just-
Hey, we better watch what we say.
I'm just warning you. Don't say anything bad about Halo, or
Sorry,
I'll punch you.
Come back to me on the GoldenEye episode.
Garbage game ran 15 frames per second. Trash.
Didn't need 2 joysticks to make it great.
Yeah, you did. They just didn't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that remake of Perfect Dark really made it so much better.
So this was back when Halo was still that backroom secret project called Project Blam. But in 1999, the thing that the majority of the Bungie office at the time working on was the sequel to Myth. Myth 2 was released. And from that day forward, Blam became at least Bungie Chicago's main priority because Oni was still being worked on.
Also, apparently Myth 2 went through some shit. There
Did
was
it?
there was like a recall on it or something. And
Yes.
it didn't sell as well.
That'll come up later.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if I have it written
But
down.
it's good that they had this in the pocket.
Basically, Myth 2 came out, and Myth 2 had a bug in it, and this was back in the days.
You couldn't patch that shit, or
You couldn't really patch that shit, so they actually had to recall copies of Myth, which cost them a lot of money. And they were also working on Halo and Oni at the time.
Right.
Then that's when Take-Two decided to invest in Bungie.
Oh.
And I think they owned like 20% stake in Bungie because they agreed from that point on that if Bungie ever made any more console games after Oni, that they would be published by Take-Two's subsidiary Rockstar.
Wow.
Huh.
So Halo was almost published by Rockstar.
Man,
Yeah.
what a
There's
weird
not a lot of
alternate
good
future
PC games out in '99 too. I'm looking at this list right here.
Oh, yeah.
It says it's an N64.
I was gonna say
slaughtering year
yeah.
though.
Well,
but
98
not
was
really
better for PC because that's
yeah.
when Half-Life and StarCraft came out. But I think
Yeah.
99.
No, it's not that much.
No.
No.
Yeah.
It's mostly N64 because fucking Smash Brothers is on here, a bunch of other good shit.
So Myth 2 was released, and aside from the problems that Randy talked about, basically the entire office was then shifted to start working on Blam.
Blam.
Blam. Monkey Nuts, as it was known.
Yeah.
So this is when the game really started to take shape. There's some great videos. I forgot to mention this at the beginning. There's an awesome article that I got a lot of information from on medium.com.
Okay.
Give me a second.
I'm not familiar.
Making of Halo, How Combat Evolved from Blam. In there, that's a great article. There's a lot of information that I took from there. And they also have a bibliography section that's just loaded with YouTube videos. If you ever want,
That's cool.
if any of our listeners ever want to find that article, you can go and read it. And you can also look in the notes section and you can see YouTube videos of basically all of the stuff I'm talking about, like in progress videos of it is on RTS.
Man, that's
The
a
videos-
lot.
yeah.
Kinda good for me because I don't know how to read. So.
We'll have to set something up for the place to put all these sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some sort of thing.
But yeah, in video progress of the game I found through that article shows things in the game now that were much more Halo-like than the military. The Jeep with the bouncy physics had become the iconic Warthog.
The best vehicle in video
The
games.
tanks that were rolling around in the
Scorpion?
background
Yeah,
had
they
become
look
the
like
Scorpion.
from the beginning. I've
Yeah.
seen this video. Yeah.
things are
Yeah,
nuts.
the guns that all the soldiers were holding were now the iconic assault rifle that we all know and love, as well as this is the first appearance of the Covenant.
I can hear the sounds in my head every time
Yeah.
you name something.
Yep.
It's that assault rifle like fart sound.
This is when it was first shown what the enemy aliens were going to look like.
Yeah.
There were just elites at the time. I don't think they had hunters, jackals, grunts,
Yeah, a lot of
or anything
guys.
like that. But there were elites, and the Ghost was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also unique too.
Yes.
I love it.
Halo so
Excuse
much.
me. Actually, it's the Sangheili. They're not
It
elite.
is the Sangheili. Do you know what? Do you know what the Grunts was,
Fuck no.
or the Hunters? I used to know all this shit. I don't anymore.
Wait, I think I knew the Jackal's name. It's like someone with a P, right? Fuck.
I forget.
This is somebody who's listening.
Someone's yelling at the...
Yeah, I was about to say, I once saw me. It was like the closest thing you ever get to being a ghost is listening to a podcast and knowing the answer when they don't.
There we go. The elites were the Sangheili. The Grunts were the Ungoi. The Jackals were the Kigyar.
I was way off.
The Hunters were the
This is some Star Wars shit.
Magelgalo.
This is some straight name generator. You just type name generator into
Yep.
the
You
computer.
sound like you have a cold right now.
And then the Engineers, which were they in Halo 1 or was that a Halo 2 thing?
I don't think that was Halo 1.
No. And then the Prophets, not in Halo 1, Brutes, not in Halo 1, Drones, not in Halo 1. But since the game was taking shape as Halo and it was now the main focus, Bungie needed to reveal it to the public. They needed to show this game off finally to get some hype. In my script, I say in typical Bungie fashion, they've abandoned this after Halo, but you remember the Halo 1 and 2 ARGs and shit like that?
I remember 2. I saw this on here because 2 was the I Heart Bees one.
I
or
Heart
whatever.
Bees, yep.
That was pretty crazy for the
Yeah.
early 2000s, but I didn't know Halo 1 had an ARG
Yeah.
as well. That's pretty...
That is absolutely
really
my
crazy.
favorite thing that. Sorry, I'm backing away. That's absolutely my favorite thing that Bungie does because they still do that to this
It's cool,
day.
yeah.
Like, there was such a cool one in Destiny. Do you remember that weird buff thing where you had to like play? They put out a thing for one of the upcoming DLCs where you would get a buff if you were in a game with somebody and it was like a disease, like it spread across like
Wait, really?
the entire player base.
Yeah, I remember that.
so
it was like
weird.
certain perks that you would get for playing certain things, and they'd be like, if you came in contact with players with that thing, you would get it.
That's
and then
cool.
you
That's
move on.
weird.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah, I
it
did
was
not
like this
know that they
deep
did
thing
that.
leading up to like the one DLC coming out. Like but they've done a ton of that in Destiny.
Oh,
too.
I know people like went back and like found some old evidence of Destiny. Like Destiny must have been in development for so long. There's like a poster in in ODST.
In ODST,
Yeah.
there's billboards that say marathon, but there's a picture of like the Traveler from Destiny on it.
Yeah,
It
it's
says
like
that. Yeah.
really, really nuts.
Yeah. But in February of 1999, a fan site for Bungie game Marathon received an email from Cortana at Bungie.com.
Wow.
It was a poem that used various lines from various AIs from those terminals we talked about in the Marathon series.
Jeez.
That's so punk rock. It was a fan site, and they're like, "Fuck it, let's email them. This will be
That is
cool as
really
shit." You know
good,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like that is so cool.
Throughout the rest of 1999, that fan site would go on to receive 4 more emails of cryptic poems from lines from AI from Marathon, all from the address Cortana at Bungie.com. And then the ARG all culminated with a 6th and final letter that was discovered hidden on a disc of an updated copy of Myth 1.
What the fuck?
Fuck.
That's so
How
awesome.
the fuck do you find that?
Yeah, like...
There was some dude. We gotta look it up. That might be a worthy episode. Find like cool game
ARGs.
Yeah. Because there are some cool ones with
I think
Destiny that
Half-Life had
also involve
someone.
like hardcore code digging
Yeah.
for people
Yeah.
to find this shit.
Yeah.
Boy.
So that was February 1999, all the way up to E3 in 1999. And E3 in 1999 was the first time that people actually got their eyes on what Halo was. But the game wasn't shown to the public just yet. The game was shown in a behind closed doors E3 demo to the press.
Was
And
that the famous Mac one with Steve
No,
Jobs?
No, that'll come
we'll
later,
get to that.
yeah.
But the game wasn't a game yet. It
Yeah.
was. They added in the assault rifle. They added in the warthogs, but it was still like just this sandbox where they just played around and shot each other. Like
Yeah.
it didn't.
The word of mouth still got out
Still
there, though.
top down though too.
Was it?
It must have been at this point because I thought it didn't change to first person until
It was third person,
yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, it was third?
person.
not top down.
Okay.
Oh,
It
okay.
was zoomed out, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. It was third
Oh,
person.
I thought it was like isometric. Like they still had it like that kind of view.
No, the demos had a lot of isometric because they would like zoom the camera out and
Because they
pan
wanted
around.
to show
That
the
makes a
battles,
lot
I
more
guess, on a
sense.
different scale.
Okay,
Yeah.
I do, yeah, because like there were people in that industry who like years later spoke about these first showings and like
Yeah.
which is-
So, as Randy said, despite a ton of NDAs that were signed at these
Yeah.
behind closed doors demos, it was leaked that Bungie had showed their new game. It was leaked that the demo was very impressive, technically. technically. And it was also leaked that the game would be codenamed Blam with an exclamation
Blam.
mark.
Well, this is
Okay,
still-
that's barely a leak.
Yeah.
That's why you have code names.
This is PC
You know what I mean?
at the time still, right? Yeah.
Yes, this was all running on PC.
Or Windows, or was it Windows or Mac?
It was Windows. It was Windows.
Okay.
And later that month, there was a Myth 2 fan site that had shut down, closed its doors. Bungie bought the URL for the Myth 2 fan site and uploaded a single image to it. And somebody went to check that URL to see if the site was still up, and
Damn.
it showed a single image that just said Halo.
That's so great.
That gives me chills.
Yeah.
Also, what if you don't give a shit about Bungie, you're just a Myth fan, and now you're pissed?
Yeah.
They shut down the fucking website. The fuck is this?
yeah.
So the game was no longer called Blam. The game was
Blam.
now officially called Halo.
Cue no music, because they haven't written it yet.
We're going to get to that. That's very,
Reading that, I thought
That's a
was one
very
of the most
interesting story.
insane
Okay,
things I saw,
so names out there. E3 demo is done. People are very hype because nobody has seen this demo. Obviously, nobody recorded it, but it's been leaked that the demo was real
Yeah.
cool. They now needed a place to show it to the public. Right around this time, Bungie hired a new vice president whose name, I'm going to butcher this, was Peter Tamte. Tamte.
I think that last E is silent.
Tamped. I don't know.
Tampy?
Tampty, who used to be an underling to Steve Jobs. And knowing Bungie's history,
Notorious deadbeat Steve Jobs.
I thought you were just going to say notorious dead guy.
Back to it.
But since Bungie had a history developing for the Mac, and now they had an in with Steve Jobs, they met with him, they showed him Halo, and he agreed that he would let them do their first public reveal on stage at Macworld 99, which is
Right.
the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
For more on this, I think this was referenced in our original Xbox episode, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So more on that.
So we're gonna
please check out episode 6
Yes.
of Hot Button.
Episode 6 of Hot Button.
Yeah.
We're gonna
It's
start.
very interesting
We're gonna
story.
start crossing over with that episode a lot, starting right now.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure that inspired a lot of wanting to dive into this.
oh yeah. I found a lot of information about Halo through that, and I was like, that's its own story.
Yeah.
We got to do that. So here we are. There was a huge problem though. You couldn't demo the game at Macworld if the game was not running on Mac, which it was not.
Steve Jobs gonna be pissed.
Like they had built the whole thing on PC.
Yeah.
The game had been running on PC this whole time, and I couldn't find out. I don't know if they lied to Steve Jobs or not, but they showed him a demo of the game, which is what convinced him to let them show it on stage at Macworld. But they showed him it running on a PC, not on a Mac.
Devious.
I guess they were just like, yeah, it totally runs on Mac.
Yeah.
This is the build we
They
have.
hollowed
I
out
don't-
a monitor.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Like a cardboard Mac, like
it's just
pasted
a
over a
cardboard
window.
box with an Apple sticker on it.
Wait a second.
It flips it off and it's like,
Windows computer.
Oh yeah,
you guys get the fuck out.
it's a cardboard box with an Apple sticker, and he rips the Apple sticker off, and there's a Windows sticker, and he's like, "Wait a minute."
I've been had.
Yeah. In our Xbox episode, we talked all about DirectX and how that started and how that birthed the Xbox.
Still one of my favorite stories ever. Please go
XXX.
listen to that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But this game was running on DirectX on the PC, but Mac and Linux, which I don't think Halo came out on Linux. I don't think it came out on Mac. No, I think about
Halo
it.
1?
Yeah, did it?
I don't know.
I probably should have looked that
I
up.
don't know.
Look
Maybe
it up.
It did. All right.
But yeah, they use something called OpenGL, which is basically the open source version of DirectX for
Yeah, well, I've heard of
non-Microsoft
that.
platformers.
Yeah.
A lot of games use it because it runs on everything. But yeah, the Halo at the time was running on DirectX.
Wow. Halo Combat Evolved eventually came out on Mac in 2003.
2003. Okay.
Yeah, December 3rd, 2003.
I know because
It's a year before too. Jeez.
Yeah, 2 years. It took over 2 years since its original release.
Macworld's in July. I believe E3 that year was in May. So they only had a couple months to get
in
this.
May? That's early.
Yeah, they only had a couple months to get this thing running on Mac. And they managed to do it, but they had one problem. they couldn't get sound working.
It's kind of important.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
Is it a
okay.
driver issue,
Did we?
or like-
I think we talked about this story on the Xbox One.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Because they did some speaker playing, right?
Oh,
They
yeah,
played on the radio.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the demo had no audio. It had no sound effects.
Okay.
And in order to mask this, they wanted to put some music in it. So they
now
called
I
up.
get-
They called
I
up.
get where we're going.
They called up Marty O'Donnell, and they told him that he would need to come up with a song that could be played on a CD separately to make it appear that the game had sound. And in this email to him, they gave him a 3-word instruction for the song they wanted: ancient, epic, and mysterious.
Man, those 3 words describe that theme so fucking well.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
he nailed.
Oh, yeah.
Man, you know you've made it as a composer when someone gives you 3 words and then you're like, got it, and then check marked them all off with your.
So yeah, he's quoted as saying like, epic and mysterious, not that hard to do in music.
Yeah.
But how do you pull off ancient without like hiring a bunch of people that play really weird, stupid instruments that nobody
Yeah.
plays anymore?
Yeah,
And then
and-
he found,
You sing.
and then, and then,
get a chant going.
and then he heard a recording of some Gregorian chanting
Yeah.
and said, "That sounds
That's it.
ancient."
Brilliant.
And therefore, the iconic Halo theme we all know and love was born.
So
Yeah.
this was before they got Ubastank and Incubus, right? Breaking Benjamin.
Yeah, this was before
there's,
Steve Vai got involved.
Yeah, there's a documentary. I don't know whether it's on one of the Halos, like some bonus features, or it's part of that that app thing I was talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
I've seen a documentary where they're interviewing him and talking to him about how he was in the car humming music when he came up with the. Like, he was just humming that shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how many times have we're all fucking musicians here? How many times have you just like hummed
All
like
the time,
and you're
yeah.
like, that's incredible. I have
Yeah.
to hum that into my
Well,
phone
not
so I don't
like-
forget
not
it or
like
something.
that. Yeah.
Well, no, of course it's not as iconic as that, but
Yeah.
like that's what he was doing. He was
Yeah.
just fucking humming in his
so
car, and he
funny.
came up with the fucking Halo theme. You know?
Here's the real impressive part, though. This was obviously on short notice because they weren't like, we're never going to get sound working. You got 2 months to make a song. They were like, we can't get sound working. Make a song now. So the song, the entire Halo theme, was composed and recorded and completed 2 days before the reveal.
Oh, jeez.
So the song was burned to a CD and then overnighted to New York, where someone promptly dropped it and stepped on it and broke
What?
the CD.
The CD?
Yeah.
That takes
What?
some like effort, like
Yeah.
some weight to like completely.
Luckily,
Why did they have like Dick Van Dyke working in the mailroom?
but luckily, Marty O'Donnell arrived for his part of playing the CD behind the scenes, and luckily he brought a spare with him.
Good job.
So
Professional. That's why you hire professionals.
yeah,
And then that one fell into a fire.
That one, he slipped and it fell right into a toaster. And
Yeah.
somebody started their own bagel at the same time.
so the game was shown off officially on July 21st, 1999 at Macworld in New York City, and that is also a very funny thing to watch because this is from that Medium article, but they say like you watch it and it's presented by Jason Jones. He's on
Yeah.
stage. He looks so
Nervous.
and then
Yeah.
you watch it and you're just like, oh, that guy's a nerd. He doesn't know how to talk to people or whatever.
You found out why he's nervous.
And then you find out why he's nervous. The demo had a 50% chance of crashing on startup.
Damn.
So
Make
he-
or break everything.
So he got brought in by Steve Jobs, went on stage, presented it as Halo, went over to the
Steve Jobs,
Mac.
notorious dead guy. Brought him up on stage.
I love that though. Roll those dice. Like, yeah.
He went up to the Mac, he took a deep breath, double-clicked that icon, and Halo launched.
If this was a casino
there were no
game,
problems.
I know.
Still
Yeah.
have the best odds.
Yep.
See, that's so cool. The early days of any technology
I
are so
know.
fucking
It
punk
feels
rock
so
like
raw
that.
and
Yeah,
real,
it just
like,
feels
yeah.
like that, and it's cool that like that. The video games are such a new medium that we were all there at like the beginning of all this fucking cool.
Oh, yeah,
like,
we're talking
you
about
know,
like it's
punk
ancient
rock
history.
shit.
But
Exactly.
It's like, I
You know what I mean?
remember,
Yeah.
So yeah, demo shown off. It's third person.
This video is
But-
incredible in retrospect. If
Yes.
you watch it, it's so
But
corny.
it's not.
It's like-
It's not. It doesn't show gameplay because again, it was just a sandbox.
Right.
So it's just them kind of panning over. They show the military guys, the Marines, fighting with elites, and then Master Chief is up on a ridge with the sniper rifle, and he shoots one of them, and then it pans to him, and then he's waving a Bungie flag at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's holding
They got those assets from the capture the flag.
the capture the flag, but it says Bungie on it, and then it just says Halo, and that's the end
That's
of it.
funny.
But yeah, demo like people leaked at E3. Demo was very impressive graphically and technically. A lot of stuff on screen, whatever. Fans were very excited now.
Graphically, though we just didn't care about textures back then.
No, people did. It was still a race, but
I know. I just meant visual. I don't know. It's just that's one of my favorite things.
We're spoiled now.
Oh, we are.
well, yeah, we're
so
desensitized
spoiled,
to them
dude.
now. But
I remember playing Destiny in 2013. And
2014,
I have my
Destiny
sniper
1.
and I'm zooming in.
Yeah.
I stand directly next to a wall and zoom in. Hey, when you zoom in pretty close, it gets a little choppy on these textures.
oh, have your pinky up for this game. Yeah.
But fucking hey, you look at that thing, it's so awesome. The
Yeah.
way how far it's come, dude. That's
You
incredible.
know, it's the first game to have a zoomable sniper rifle.
What's that?
GoldenEye.
I'm sorry, dude. He baited me. I didn't know.
Halo, the first console first-person shooter to run at above 10 frames per second.
Not true.
Console. It invented console first-person shooters. Okay.
Yeah, they weren't.
GoldenEye did not exist until Bungie.
Dark. I played Doom on the SNES. It was
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
hard.
GoldenEye. You mean a game where you just had to move the joystick all around? There was no friction.
Which
there was
one
no.
of us are you trying to fight today?
I don't know. Everybody.
Okay. With this demo, Bungie also released their PR statement officially revealing Halo, because again, people knew that it was called Halo now because of that little weird ARG thing where they took that site, but it was never, it was now officially named Halo, and it came with a description, which was: the player is a military recon unit of the human race's fledgling planetary empire, pursued by alien warships to a massive and ancient ring construct deep in the void. The player must single-handedly improvise a guerrilla war over land, sea, and air, using arsenals and vehicles of 3 distinct cultures, using everything from composite swords to orbital bombardments, driving everything from giant tanks to agile combat aircraft. Players wage intense warfare over and under the surface of this world.
C.
That sounds awesome right now.
It
you know
does,
what I mean?
but-
Picture then when
But
you're
it's funny
what the
because
fuck?
was this pre? It just says a military recon unit. I mean, Master Chief was a character at this point, but was the idea of the Spartans as being the Jedi of that universe really a thing yet? I mean, the swords didn't.
I don't
make it
even
in,
think
obviously,
that was a mythos until Reach. Really think about any
Yeah.
mentions of other Spartans until that. You know what I mean?
I guess
So
that's
you
fair.
were
I guess maybe ODST was before Reach. I guess
the-
there was some mention there.
of what? The Spartans?
Yeah, being
Yeah.
a more than just Master Chief.
That
'Cause-
was before Halo came out,
really.
and I'll get to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Shit, I thought it was kind of just he was some
No, I'll get-
superhero until they had a
I'll
chance.
get to that. But so yeah, but Bungie impressed everybody with this demo, but they had one huge problem, which was that they had shown their hand. Everything that they showed in the demo
was all they had.
was everything that they had made.
I didn't imagine what else you got.
Yeah. They didn't have any
see
other
that flag?
They didn't have any other environments. They didn't have any other enemies made up. They didn't have any.
Yeah,
it
but
wasn't a
this
game.
also-
It was a sandbox.
This is also a glorious time for video games where it's and nobody was expecting it either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not where if well, I'm sorry, this is me personally, but where I'm I'm visibly angry at CD Projekt Red for not showing me more about Cyberpunk 2077.
got
It's
20-minute long
I know, 48-minute long
48
video,
minutes. Yeah,
excuse
you're
me, which
right.
I've watched twice all the way through.
I watched the whole thing. It does
Yeah, I
look
watched
good.
it a couple times.
But it's not like that anymore. You know, it's this time.
You're
It's
right.
who knows when this will come out.
Yeah.
There was nobody gun to head telling them
Yeah.
to finish it. You
Yeah,
know?
that is true.
But yeah, so this is part 1, which we did not mention at the
Impromptu
beginning.
part 1.
We've been talking for a while, so we are actually going to leave it right here.
I think this is a good spot.
Yeah,
you're right, too.
And next week we will come back with starting with them turning this sandbox demo into an actual video
Into
game.
a video game.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
But that is where we're going to leave it for this week.
Yeah.
You're obviously already listening to it, but if you're not yet, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify.
Leave a review. It's annoying, but
Google
just leave
Play.
a review.
And if you want to go back and listen to
'Cause it
that old
shows up-
episodes, that Xbox one is a real great precursor.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, definitely very helpful for us if you go onto iTunes and leave a review.
It just, for some reason, it's weird. That's the way the algorithm works, where you show up more frequently the more people review you.
Yeah,
It's
Now
stupid.
you know why everybody says it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're also, I was telling Jason about this. We can do this live on the podcast.
Yeah.
Apparently, I can export everything to YouTube through Podbean.
Oh, nice.
really?
That's
So
really
I'm
cool.
going to start
shit.
posting all the episodes to YouTube.
Yeah, be
so
on the lookout for that.
because YouTube is a garbage site made by idiots, come at me, Google.
Yeah. What of it, Alphabet?
Yeah. We can't have youtube.com/hotbutton or /hotbuttoncast until we have a certain number of subscribers.
What?
So go on YouTube,
All right.
look up Hot Button. I might post it on the social media, and subscribe there if you're a fan. That way we can get the
Do you know what the
URL to
threshold
promote
is?
it easier. I think it's like 150 subscribers or something.
We can
like
do
that.
that.
do that.
It's
Yeah,
not yet.
come on. Let's fucking
Powers in your
subscribe.
hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Hot Button Cast. We post new episodes, other information.
Weekly. Haven't missed a week
We
yet.
got clips.
Yeah, and subscribe to that fucking YouTube channel, because if enough of you do, maybe we'll start making videos, and you can see how handsome all of us are, and
Ugh, don't promise that.
I look just like John Hamm. It's weird.
Yeah, I look
Yeah,
like
I look-
Britney Spears.
I look just like...
Now.
I look just like a bunch of wood that somebody tied together with some string they found on the beach.
All right, then. There you go. Somebody
We obviously think highly of ourselves.
Somebody Photoshop that and send it to us, and we'll post it on our social media.
Which is Hot Button Cast
Yeah.
across the board.
Yep,
It is.
at Hot Button Cast.
And come back next week. You know you want to hear the end of the story.
Yes, and that's where we're going to leave you for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Oh.